everyone, I'm so glad to have you here today. Make sure you hit the like, follow, notification buttons. We're going to be doing this fun fold card here today, which is really cool. It's a note card inside of a fun fold. So it's a really like a 2-for-1 card. You could send it to somebody right on the inside note card, have them take that out, and then send it on to someone else. So we'll go over the measurements. We'll do quick techniques, quick ink blending, quick ink smooshing just to create some bright, beautiful colors, because the big wow factor in this card are all the pieces that go together. So I will show you how to make it. I learned this from Jennifer McGuire at a conference, and I am in love. It's such a great way to get more out of your cards. Here's a couple of other looks at this just so that you can see what we're doing. We're going to start with 8.5 by 11 paper, and we'll get going. I'm just showing you the size of the paper here. We're going to cut it this way, so longwise at 4.25, so that we have a long card that we'll be able to score and open up so that we can place another note card on the inside. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this. Make sure if you haven't done it yet, you hit the like and subscribe button. I'm so glad to have you on the channel. So you see I've got a 4.25 by 11 sheet of paper now. So I'm going to put this long ways right here on my scoreboard, and I'm going to make sure that I score right at 2.75 on this side, and then I'm just going to flip the card. You could calculate what 2.75 from the end is, but it's a lot easier just to flip it around and score it at 2.75 again. So I'm scoring, making some nice deep lines. This is a heavyweight cardstock because this is what I use for my bases. So I'll make sure I include that. This is one from Amazon, Opaque Accent White, Opaque I believe is what it's called. And I'm going to make sure I do a good job folding these down. They're still going to want to open up a little bit. So if you don't like your card to open up when somebody picks it out of the envelope, then you could always put a band around it to keep it closed. I personally want my card to open up when somebody takes it out of the envelope so that they can see the cool effect of it. So mine is not going to have a band around the middle. And now we're going to create our note card that sits in the middle. We have a piece of paper here, and I want to make sure that it's a top folding so it sits over the top of that. We're going to cut the first one to 5 3/8, so a little bit smaller than that 5 1/2, which is what the card dimension inside is, and that's just so that it slides in and out easily. So that is 5 3/8. Now we need to cut a little bit of this length off because this piece of paper goes to 11 inches. So I'm going to cut it down to 8 1/2 so that it can be scored evenly in the middle at 4.25, and then we'll fold it over the back. Now I made mine just a little bit shorter because I knew I was going to trim off edges and everything. So I looked at it and I decided I'd go 4 1/8 instead of 4.25, and that's because when I put it in this card, it's okay for it to be a little bit short. And look at this measurement here. 4 2/5 will stick up just a little bit too far, so I'm trying not to do as much trimming, so I decided to go with 4 1/8 for my score line. I still do end up trimming just a little bit just to make sure that you're not seeing that the card sits flat when it's sitting up. So you'll see you can do that with your scissors very easily. So 4 1/8. All right, so now I've got this folded, and you see it fits in the middle of this card. So it fits just perfectly. You can trim off edges if you need to, but it's gonna look so cute, and you can reuse this card. So somebody could take the interior note card out and send this card again, which is really cool. So it's going to be a really cool, easy card. Now we're going to keep our design pretty simple, so we're going to do some ink smooshing. I'm going to use these new mini inks from Simon Says Stamp, and there's 6 colors, but I'm going to use the top 3. We're going to use Carnation, Peony, and Rose for our ink smooshing. And little ink pads like this work great for ink smooshing because you can just smoosh them down onto your mat, and then you can get some of that ink and put it right on your design. So I'm going to show you how we do that. Okay, so ink smooshing is a really great technique for background stamps, and this large background stamp with peonies is going to be great. So I'm going to stamp this background stamp in Versamark ink, which is a clear embossing ink. I'm going to put it on watercolor paper, and when you're doing ink smooshing, you need to have some paper that will take some water because you're going to add water to the ink. So I'm going to heat emboss this in white with Wow embossing powder. So I'm going to heat emboss this. Once it's dry, I'm going to start cutting up some plastic, and what I'm using is actually just kind of upcycling, taking some packaging from my stamps, and I'm going to cut it in some strips. I know I've got 3 colors, so I'm going to make sure I've got at least 3 strips. So with these strips, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to put this carnation ink on the mat. I'm going to take one strip, kind of wad it up, and apply this to my watercolor paper. So the more water that you add to your ink, obviously the lighter it will be. And I'm not starting out with any water on my paper. I'm just kind of adding, and if I want a little bit more color, I can add some more. But what I like to do in between is you need to either let it dry or dry it with a heat tool. So I'm drying this, and then we're going to do our next color. The way that I like to lay down my ink smooshing is in 3 areas. So I've done my lightest color in 3 areas on the background. Now we're going to Peony, which is the second color, and I'm just going to do a couple of smooshes on the ink pad, add a little bit of water, and then we'll fold up our plastic, and I'm actually using a different piece of plastic for each color. Not that that really matters, you can do however you want to, but I wanted my colors to be pretty pure and show the definite difference. And I'm just picking up some of this darker color and adding it in several areas. And so I can see the pattern of my flowers, so I'm kind of thinking that I'm going from light to dark on my flowers as I lay this down. And just remember, have fun with it. You can put this kind of anywhere. I'm not doing any separate color for the leaves or anything, just adding lots of fun pink colors. The last one is rose, and this is the darkest of the colors and really fun. It makes a nice contrast on here, so I actually think I like adding this darkest color. It just gives it that great pop. So for the interior card, I've cut this to a regular A2 size, and I'm using some masking paper from Gina K to create a little strip down the middle. The reason I did the strip down the middle is because when you close the regular card, you can see a little bit of that inside card, and keeping the colors consistent is really nice and just looks really good. So we're just going to do a little bit of ombre ink blending down the center of this. And the other thing I like about this masking paper is that it's long, so I can cover this whole area, but it also kind of sticks my piece of paper to the mat, which helps a little bit. I am going to use some Post-it notes just to cover up the back half of this card. And I'm going to use those same colors to ink blend. And like I said, I'm just doing an ombre. So I'm starting with my lightest at the top, carnation. And then I'm going to blend it down with peony and rose. So peony will be in the middle, and then rose is the next one. And I'll go over this several times to make it a nice smooth ink blending. Then we're going to put this card behind. We'll stamp on it after we get it ready, because I want to see where it fits. And I want my thanks that comes across the front to cover up the stamping that will be in the middle of this card. So I'll show you how we do that. Okay, and here's how that looks. It looks great. Now let's cut down our panels from our beautiful peony to fit on this front part of the card. So I'm going to cut them to, and I'm looking at this, and you'll see me move it around in different ways. I want the prettiest part on that front start area. So if you're like, what in the world is she doing, rotating and doing different things, that's why. So I'm going to cut a panel. Each of the panels is 2.75 inches or 2 3/4 inches, and that's the width of them. So we need to cut 2 panels that are that wide, and then we'll trim them down to 4.25. So I'm holding it on my card to see where the prettiest part of that flower is, and then I will trim it down. So this one I've got to make sure it's 2.75. I think I have to cut a little bit off the edge, and then I'm going to trim it down to 4.25 so that it will fit on the front. And here's how those panels look. So see how pretty that is? It's going to look awesome. So I'm going to add some adhesive and attach these to the front. And that's how that looks. Now we're going to put something across this to kind of hold it together, and we're going to use this thanks die from Simon Says Stamp, and it's got a shadow and a middle part, and I'm going to use gold, and then we're going to put it right across the front. It fits really well because it takes up enough space on the front of this, so it's a good one to use. And you may want to reinforce this, so I'm putting some thick white cardstock behind my matte gold cardstock, and I may put an extra piece behind the shadow as well. It just makes it thicker so that it holds together a little bit better when somebody's opening the card. So I would suggest just adding a little extra thickness to this part of the card. And a quick, easy way to make sure you know where you're stamping is to put a little piece of paper across where that thanks is. And so I just took a scrap piece of paper, and I'm kind of practicing my stamping. I also like to make sure that it's going to stamp well. So I'm getting a good amount of ink and stamping here. And then I'm just going to flip this piece of paper up because I know that the thanks right there covers this up. So I'm going to carefully flip it up, and I know that I'll be right where I need to stamp. So I'm flipping it up and carefully stamping right there in the center. I might have pushed down a little too hard on that and got it not quite as crisp, but it looks great. That black ink is VersaFine Nocturne, which is one of my favorites. It does such a great job. And now when you close the card, you can't see this part, but when you open it, you can. It's really cool. Such a fun way to do a card. I hope that all of you enjoyed this today. Make sure that if you haven't done it yet, that you hit the like, the subscribe, and notification bell. I do new videos almost every week, and I would love to have you back here on the channel. So I've popped up a video here that I think you will like, and I hope that you have a great day. Check the description for all the links if you're interested in any of these products. Have a great day. Bye.